Hello, and welcome back to the Follow Your Spark podcast. This is a very special episode. I don't normally do episodes in person, and I have the pleasure of being with Dr. Harnoor Singh today, and I am so excited to introduce this person to you. This incredible human next to me is a passionate physical therapist, yoga teacher, movement practitioner, and is dedicated to enhancing health and well-being through purposeful movement. He has a deep understanding of biomechanics and holistic wellness, which he integrates to support people, all kinds of people, to move better and feel stronger. He is the founder of Tribe Baltimore's Zouk scene, where he combines his love for dance and community building. His approach blends therapeutic knowledge, mindfulness, and creative movement to inspire growth, resilience, and joy in every person he works with, fostering both personal and communal transformation. I have the pleasure of having experienced his work the past few months and how we met, actually. I don't think I ever told you the story. When you were teaching at the Harbor, there was one time I was like, man, I really want to go to these Zouk classes. And my friend Naomi and I showed up one day, but it was like a day that class was canceled. And we were like trying to message everybody. So we never made it there. We missed it once.
Naomi Fort?
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
And I finally made it here. So now that Zouk is in Baltimore at Tribe, I am so grateful. And Zouk is something that I had always wanted to learn, but there wasn't really a Zouk scene here. And I am just so happy that you had the vision and passion to bring it here. And I was so inspired by what you did, because it takes something to create that. And I'm so excited to dive into what that journey was like. So thank you for being here and saying yes to this today.
Oh, for sure. Thanks for introducing me. I mean, that introduction felt like it gave me just some chills. I was like, whoa, is that how I'm being introduced? Because like in my head, I'm Harnoor. And it's just nice to hear somebody be able to like just share so many parts of my journey that led me to the moments that I'm sharing right now on this podcast.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Thanks. So I always love to start this conversation by asking, when you hear that phrase, to follow your spark, what, if anything, does that mean to you?
I think I have like pretty iconic sensations that go through my body of like moments where like it feels like a crossroad moment in my life, and moments that I was able to say yes to, like crossroad moments that were filled with fear and maybe not even fear, but risk. And for me, it felt like a no-brainer to consistently say my yes so long as I felt that spark. Yeah, and so stories come up in my mind right away, like turning moments in my life where I was like, okay, I'm going to say yes. And sometimes I did it in community, those yes moments. So I get to reflect with my friends, like, you remember when you helped me say yes? And like, look how different the outcome is because you helped me in that moment say my yes. So it's like this moment of alignment when I think of the words like follow your spark, is like you get to touch it. Like you touch like this alignment of like what could be possible. And then it's just a matter of like, can you say yes right when that frequency matches? And then I mean, it's crazy. Yeah. Like some of the emotions that come to mind for me when I get to say my yes to those sparking moments.
Yeah. So it sounds like, again, like you said, of that touching that frequency of what feels in alignment and feeling both the fear that might arise and also what helps you get past that fear of like, okay, the fear is present and I'm going to do it. Like what helps you shift past into momentum?
Yeah, I guess maybe I'll zoom into a story and then I'll zoom out into like that question of like what lets me say my yeses. The story that comes to mind that felt like one of the crossroads was just my interview into physical therapy school, where I had been denied from so many schools. And the long of it is that I just didn't complete my research project at the time. So without the completion of my research project, no school would look at me. But I knew when it was completed and it was published, everything would get squared away with my GPA, so on and so forth. So I'm getting denied from every school because the research project isn't completed. And then I finally complete, and the next day I get an interview, right? So it just was this whole concoction of a story of me getting that interview, but I find out at 2 a.m. and the interview's at 8 a.m. And so I find out at 2 a.m. before bed. I look at my emails and I go, oh my God, I got accepted and they're interviewing me. And the drive is 5 hours away. So it's 2 a.m. and I wake up my roommate and I tell him like, hey man, I know like this is a big ask, but I don't have a car and I need you to drive me 5 hours right now. And that's what I mean by like in reflection with community too. So like that moment of like, I could have maybe called and said like, can we reschedule? Can we do this? But it was so late into the season at this point of them accepting applicants. I didn't want any risks. And that was just like right when I felt it, And I'm working many hours at this point at our Panera. I'm working 60 hours a week at Panera. And I'm just like, dude, this is it. I have to do this moment. And there's just many moments like that where the crossroad met. As far as like what lets me say my yes so quickly, I think there's just been a predetermined decision that I had made a while ago that I would do my deepest yeses. Like a small moment that comes to mind of like making the predetermined yes so that when the opportunity arises, I already have my yes ready to go is I used to be into hip hop dance battling. So I used to like compete and battle as a hip hop dancer. And I had already decided I will never say no to a competition. And so sometimes I'd be with my friends and they'd be like, oh, there's a competition happening in 20 minutes. And I just already had made the predetermined yes. So whenever the opportunity had come up, it was very easy for me to say like, oh yeah, I'm gonna say yes because that's the decision I had made some time ago. But it feels like that story is analogous to just like the predetermined yes in general that I've made that I want to commit to what feels like will aliven me the most. And it feels at this point like fairly patterned and easy to create those moments. Like it doesn't feel like there's much push anymore when the spark hits to like I have to really it's like the reps have been put in.
Yes, yes, I love that. And that example of eliminating like a path of resistance. And it's like when you already decide something and you've already just committed ahead of time, you're like, okay, if this opportunity rises, I'm committed, I'm gonna say yes, I'm gonna move forward. So it's like if there's fear that comes up, it's just having one less thing to decide. It's already chosen. So when the opportunity presents itself, it's just that much easier to follow through and follow that path. It's well worn because you've already decided it in your mind.
Yeah. What do they say? Practice meets opportunity.
Yes.
That thing. Yeah.
Yes.
Perfect moments.
Love it. So one thing I'm curious about, I know physical therapy is a big part of your journey. Has movement always been a big part of your journey? Did you know from a young age that you wanted to be a physical therapist? Like, how did you get into all of this movement practice? How did that become such a big part of your life?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's a good way to zoom out because I kind of dove into, okay, I'm going to physical therapy school and now I'm competing in hip hop battles. And it's like, how does it all tie together? Well, like to zoom out, I didn't have any big physicality principles growing up. Like I wasn't like super athletic. I wasn't really involved in my body, like beyond maybe the average individual. Like when you reflect back, you can then see all the moments of like, actually, I was fairly physical. But in those moments, like I was just another dude moving their body like casually. I'm not athletic. I can say that like pretty hands down because I just came in last place in almost all my athletic endeavors. Like I was just like I was excited, but when I wrestled, I lost like every match. But I was excited. And then when I swam, I lost every meet. And then when I raced, running, I got pretty decent at by my high school. By the end of my high school career, I was getting like, okay, like I'm doing pretty good in long distance running. But like most of the time, I was just moving because I wanted to like move my body and prove that I could, like to myself, like, okay, like I'm gonna wrestle. People say it's hard to wrestle, but I'm gonna try and wrestle. So, anyways, the fast forward, I go to college and I always wanted to dance. And like, there was just no dancing where I'd grown up in rural Pennsylvania. I was just doing athletics because that was the only offerings that were in existence. And then when I got to college, I got to get into hip hop. That's when I started dancing. I'm weightlifting because that's just all I know weightlifting, dancing, weightlifting, dancing. And it's really when I found acro yoga that my horizons were very open. So, like, I was at the time of dance, the phrase I always said was like, dance can save the world. And it's because, and I really still feel that way because when you're in an embodied experience around people that aren't even speaking the same language as you can just see different types of interconnections in humanity that are beyond like just what feels like dividing principles. So I'm like in this hip hop dance room and like there's a person next to me from Taiwan, barely speaks English, but like we are just sweating, dripping, like waving, popping, tutting for just hours. And like we're just and but the whole room was so dynamic in its diversity. Like 30 people all just here to dance. And we're there like 4 or 5 nights a week, training, vibing, laughing. And so I was just like, I think anybody from an embodied state could do anything. And I thought the only embodied state that exists was dance. And so when I found out about acro yoga, have you ever? Nice, yeah. So lifting people up in the air. And that was my second like aha, like whoa, deep community can be created here. And so I thought, okay, it's acro yoga and dance that'll save the world. And so it just kind of started opening up the horizons. And then I started rock climbing. And I finished my yoga teacher training while I was in physical therapy school. And at this point, I have like a bunch of movement practices under my belt. And so I get the chance to have this experience where I'm giving a workshop at a martial arts studio on what is alignment in the body.
Mm-hmm.
I'm year one in PT school. I'm excited about the body. I still don't have really that deep of an understanding, but like because I had done my yoga teacher training under somebody who's astounding, Laura Hyman, she broke down such deep alignment concepts for
Mm.
me that I wanted to travel and teach. So I started at this studio, martial arts studio. I'm teaching this alignment class, and the martial arts instructor is a true mover. He's not just like just a martial arts instructor, and I don't even want to use the word just. He's not only a martial arts instructor, he's a dancer, he's a man of his body, and he is deep into his journey. And I'm a novice. So he attends the workshop and he asks me questions that blow my mind.
Mm.
So I say in the workshop, I say, what's one way to strengthen your core? And he raises his hand and he goes, there's many ways. We could sing. And I was like, who is this man? Because I was about to just talk about transversus abdominis engagement. And this man said singing. And I was like, I never thought of that. I just didn't even realize that there was like a whole nother avenue, which just showed how narrow my pipeline of instruction was. But him coming from an eclectic background, he's the one that started opening my eyes to the interconnection of many, many practices. And so at the end of the workshop, I asked him, how to go. He said, it was cool, man. He goes, who you should check out is this guy named Ido Portal, right? Who had coined the word movement at the time. So he's a deep practitioner. Have you ever heard of Ido?
No.
I just got the chance to hear of him for the first time. I watched his documentary. I went to Colorado, found a Ido Portal gym, trained there for 2 to 3 years. And that's what really opened up my practice. So like when I was in Colorado, I did most of it online, but like I would go there once every 2 months to train with my coaches. That's when I got the chance to train 3 to 5 hours every day. And I was working on every variety of movement that they would put me through, like all sorts of palettes. So like we would be going through softness principles of waving the body all the way to heavy deadlifts, to juggling, to handstands. And the training was so for me that it really opened up the whole movement world and how these disciplines connect. So I finally started realizing it was more than dance. It was more than acro yoga. There's similar pillars here of the human experience that if we can dive into concepts of the body and community, you can create a lot of bridge work. And so, yeah, those are some of the things that brought me to even what you're experiencing in Zouk right now, which is just like building community through embodied experiences.
Yeah. Wow, that is definitely an eclectic experience. And so, like a journey, I can see the journey that you've been on. And one thing you said around, I believe, like movement can change the world, or you said like dance and acro yoga can change the world. What is it about all of these practices that you've been like weaving together over the years that you really think has the power to change the world?
Yeah, this is something I think a lot about, which is the pillars. Like, what are some of the pillars that can really create deep fulfillment, right? And I'm still questioning my thoughts around it. Like, I feel like I get an understanding of it to an extent. So I might like get the chance to listen to this podcast and like be like, that was young. That was a young version of me trying to understand how this world operates. But some of the things that like I found to be the pillars, one of them could be the actual experience of embodiment or growth, like coming into the body and experiencing growth. And the second one being community. So there's one which is the physicality practice. And then there's the second one of getting the chance to do it alongside other people. And that there is other pillars that I've like come to know, but those two were the predominating factors that I wanted to engage in as much as possible. Can I move my body rigorously, or even just like be in somatic experiences with my body in community? Another pillar that I recently found out in a adventure a year or two ago was nature, where I first thought, as long as people are moving and people are in community, like you probably have like most of the recipe for longevity. And then this is a lot of like research too. I get the chance to teach a lot of longevity workshops. And I do break down like, okay, like you must be able to stand on your one leg. You must be able to do this, fall risk, like classic physical therapy examples of things that would create a longer life or longevity. But I found that like the ones that would really that are underdeveloped in understanding is community. And so like people who are involved in their church, people who are involved in some sort of community as they age is just one of the most like predictive factors of like, is that person going to be experiencing one, longevity, but two, fulfillment. And just recently I realized that also I would add as another pillar, I would put nature, because I have been moving a lot in community, but I found that it actually does change quite a bit if we're out in nature from time to time. Like it does matter the structural environment that you're coexisting in your movement and community in. And as much as I love the beauty of these studios we develop, there's something really transformative of getting to be outdoors. And I am a newbie in that field. Like I don't spend as much time outdoors as I'd like to. So that's something I'm calling in as a pillar for my own life to start bringing in.
Love it. Well, as a feng shui consultant and someone who studies biophilic design, you're definitely speaking my language. And
oh, fuck yeah.
Yeah, you know.
Can I curse?
Maybe, sure.
Maybe. Okay.
Yeah, so human beings, like we weren't designed to live indoors, and now we spend 90+% of our time indoors, whereas we are designed to thrive with light, with color, with texture, with all of these natural elements, and we're very cut off from them when we're just in our built environments all day long. So it doesn't surprise me that you're drawn to and have been more and more drawn to of like, oh yeah, like nature is an important piece of this puzzle. It's because we are part of nature. So when we close ourselves off to that, we don't have access to all the incredible gifts and health benefits that being in nature can impact us with. So I love that. And I'm curious too, you talked about this has the power to change the world. And then you've been talking about longevity and how growth, community, nature can lead to more longevity, more fulfillment. How does that change the world if people are living longer and more fulfilled? Like what impact does that have on society, on the world?
Yeah, it's a great question. How does that change the world? I'm not sure like if I actually, and this might be more philosophical, like if I actually really believe that sentence I said myself of like this can change the world. I guess what I mean by that is that I'm not sure if I actually in this current day and state feel like it's important to change the world. I guess right now I'm mostly experiencing a lot of yes, help my community, yes, help my family and my circles and my city and my state and the world to the best of my ability. But I don't know if I actually have the intelligence to know what would be better serving the world. It feels like for me to try and answer that, the concept of how will that change the world, I imagine some concepts that come to mind that like, okay, it can create more fulfillment in local communities and so on and so forth. But like the actual impact it has on the world and then which way should the world change, I don't know if that's actually my orientation. Like as much as I like say that phrase, this can change the world, what I really mean by that phrase is this is powerful tools for the individual and collective individuals together can then make a rise to a better world. But what is a better world and all these other things? And that might be more philosophical than you meant the question to be. But I guess I just want to say that I don't know. I don't know too much about what the world needs. And these are just things that like have given me passion and purpose, and I like sharing them. But whether it changes the world and what happens, and if I die in 100 years, if anybody even remembers me or anything like that, like none of that actually. I don't attune myself to that too much.
Yeah. And I'm here for all the philosophical conversations. And part of me is like, I would 100% argue that everything that you just described will change the world. And I can see it. And I hear that question too of what does the world need? Who are or any of us to decide what the world needs? And it does feel like the truth to me that if there are people who are healthier, happier, more connected to community, how could that be a bad thing?
Right.
It seems like feels like a pretty capital T truth to me that would have a positive impact. And when more of us are happier, when more of us are healthier, and when more of us are fulfilled, we have that much more energy to share our gifts, to share our purpose, to share our light. And that's exactly why I created this podcast. Right. Because I believe that when people are following that spark, and for you, it's movement, it's community, it's nature. You have created this vision in Baltimore that did not exist before you. And how many people come into this class? And you said yesterday, of that class changed my life. And people who come and share that. And that moment wouldn't have happened had you not had the vision and created this. And I feel like for me, it's the truth that when people do that, it has a positive impact in the world. What's going to happen when people are more happy and more fulfilled? Who knows? Maybe their truth or their passion has a different manifestation. And yes, we don't know what that's going to be. And it does feel like to me that when more people are, like I said, happier, healthier, living more purposeful lives, feels like that would create the best possible reality for all of us. And granted, we all have different opinions. We all have different views of what a quote unquote better earth would be. But it seems hard to argue with like love, connection, community, health.
Yeah. And I guess all I know is that from my personal experience, when I do get to follow the spark or I do find that moment of alignment and I say yes, there has been nothing but like beautiful gifts that echo out. So I don't know like how that transforms the world, but I know that every time I've said yes to that moment, there's been just like a lot of transformation that circles around me.
Yeah, and that's the thing, we don't always get to know. We don't ever get to know ahead of time, like where saying yes is going to lead. And it's about being able to feel that frequency of alignment within us of like, I don't know what it is, but something in me is like yes to this. I don't know why this or that, but it feels like that yes, I've predetermined that I'm going to follow this, that matters to me, and see what happens. So it's beautiful. And I'm also curious, Zouk, why Zouk? Why is Zouk something so important to you? Why did you want to bring Zouk to Baltimore? Like, it didn't exist here before. Like, what made you go through everything that you had to go through, whatever that was, to make this happen here?
Yeah, so lucky I found Zouk. I don't know how it came into my life, and I'm not even, I would have just never guessed that this would have been such a big part of my life. I bet most Zouk dancers can say that, like, because it's not a very popular dance, Brazilian Zouk, but when you find it, you kind of can find yourself in addictive states. Like, have you experienced anything like that? Like, in the sense, like, while dancing Zouk, have you ever gotten the chance to experience some of these, like, states of, like, where am I? What is this? And, like, this is just like a portal I didn't even know existed.
Yeah, it's magical. And I've experienced it many times with different partner dances over the years. And yeah, Zouk definitely has its own special like flavor and essence to that.
Yeah, I'm a big newbie in Zouk. I'll start with that. I've only been getting to dance Brazilian Zouk for 2.5 years. And so there are just so many esteemed practitioners out there. So I can just share from my very humble experience. But pretty much with my background in dance, I got the chance to do a lot of different styles. And some of the styles I was doing at the time were mostly solo styles, a lot of hip hop. And then I found partner dancing. And I always just wanted to be like comfortable, confident with a partner at the club. I had these like visions, like maybe one day I'll get to like be with a partner at a club and spin them, and like it'll be magical, and like I think that's a common experience to like to yearn to be able to feel free while you dance. Like and I maybe not everybody would use those exact words, but everyone's probably been in a state where they've had some sort of relationship with dance, right? Maybe you say, I don't dance. Maybe you say, like, I dance at weddings. One thing that I feel was just so transformative in general in my dance, but then I'll bring it to Zouk, was just the experience of, like, I really can dance anywhere. And that happened way before I got good. Like, I'm pretty good. I'm pretty good at, like if not necessarily Brazilian Zouk, but I am good at that too. But I'm just pretty good when it comes to like you put me in a space of dance and I can hang. Like I can go to the club and I can hang. I can go to a wedding and I will kill it. And I don't mean kill it like look at these crazy moves. Like kill it like I will be able to connect and fill people's hearts with joy as I'm filling my own. Like and I'm really good at that. Like and so when I found partner dance, I started with salsa and bachata. And a lot of people were whispering about Brazilian Zouk in my life. And I just like heard that this dance was transformative. And I gave it a shot once and at Interfusion 3 years ago. And that was enough that I was like, okay, this is kind of cool, but nothing that like really sold me to it. I was just like, okay, this is a cool workshop. And then I got to take this workshop with Guy. Do you know Guy?
No.
In DC?
No.
Guy Prada. So he was teaching at this bachata festival. I, at that point, never really went to festivals in general in dance. So I take a whim. I go to this bachata festival, and it happens to have Zouk there too. And Guy Prada teaches this dance. It's a 2-hour workshop. It's a 2-hour workshop on how to hug. And when I experienced that workshop, I thought to myself that this was like whatever this leads to, I'm fully in because it had so many life skills in it. And I got the chance to, of course, be in a lot of partner practices like acro yoga, salsa, bachata, and any partner practice, you're gonna learn a fucking ton about human connection. And so with that, like the process of learning it through these different pillars, they all exist at different frequencies. And at Brazilian Zouk, I never learned so much about softness and micro expression, right? And so like what I mean by both those principles is I'm getting the chance in this hugging workshop to work with Guy and his teachings, and we're giving these hugs, and he is explaining so much detail about how to give a good hug. And now I get to teach a lot about hugging. And I, as a physical therapist, I'm massaging all day. I study touch deeply, but I was profoundly like eye opened as to what was possible still in touch that I didn't know. And so we talked about when you place your hand, like how do you reduce the tension in your bicep? Because all tension can be felt between partner to partner. And where do you stand? And how do you stand? And how is the space that you occupy changing your posture? And if you have a hunched posture because your feet are a little too far back, you're going to create a little more tension in your low back versus if you stand under yourself. And so we're going through this hugging principles in such deep detail that like I just knew that this whole dance had a world that I didn't know existed. And so if you get to watch Brazilian Zouk, you'll get to see electrifying performances with 27 spins into crazy dip patterns. And then you'll see performances that look like two people just hugging for 10 minutes. And they'll have like the smallest movements in their body. And I love to coexist in both. You know, I'm really excited about the fun, energetic dancing, like moments that feel like they're performative. But I am so addicted to what happens in the process of deep connection, holding somebody so close and being able to create such subtle zen states, such subtle movements that call you to a zen state, that I get to experience those often solo in meditation practices. But Brazilian Zouk was the first one that let me dance, meditate with a partner at the same time. You know, like you can dance and you can meditate and dance, but like Brazilian Zouk lets you dance, meditate with a partner. So it really is something that if you're listening to this podcast, DM me and I will give you a hug and just share with you like how much this hug changed my life. So
yeah, it is incredible. And I remember in one of your classes one day having a conversation with someone and talking about how one of the things that feels so special about Zouk and these classes is that and maybe this is just my perception, and it doesn't feel like there's that many opportunities in the everyday world, everyday life, especially for men and women, men and men, whatever, people to interact in this way that invites in deep connection and relating on both like a physical level as well as an emotional level and like an everything level. So Zouk just feels like so much more than just a physical practice, a dance practice. It's a space that I feel like there aren't that many other opportunities that I've found, other containers like that I've found to interact in that way. And I feel like so many people are hungry for connection, for deep relating that goes beyond surface level, that goes beyond like, yeah, let's just go get a drink at a bar, like whatever. So it just feels like a very special experience that isn't available in a ton of other places.
wow. Thanks for bringing that up. I totally forgot that is a huge reason I love Zouk. Yeah, it's the container of touch and connection that doesn't exist in so many practices. And there are so many people craving that. So many people that are craving just... I'll share a story that I went through this breakup, and it was a very tough experience for me. And like all of us have needs that have to be met. You know what I mean? And for me, I know I have a need for compassion and touch. It's something that just helps me in a thriving state. Like if that need is met, my energy is like so much more aligned than when it's not met. I'm leaking everywhere. I'm like looking for it, and I'll leak into like eating food that I don't care for. I'll leak into sleeping in weird ways. I'll just be leaking into spaces that aren't serving me, right?
Yeah.
And so I go through this breakup. And at that time, I didn't know Zouk, but at least I knew salsa dancing. And so I was still, at the very least, I was like, oh, like I'm really craving connection.
Yep.
And I was able to go dancing
Yep.
and create the space needed for me to feel still that I can thrive in this
Yes.
experience. And there are so many people I've met who are yearning for this connection. And the only way they know how is to get it from their partner. And either A, they don't have a romantic partner, or B, they haven't created enough bridges with their current romantic partner to satiate those needs. And so you can resolve that with just the options A and B, get a partner and satiate those needs with the current romantic partner you have. But the idea that you can share connection in these containers, I think going back to that can change the world. There's so many humans that I think would operate at a much higher level of confidence if they could have their connection needs met. And this dance really offers that. And of course, you don't want to come to any space with just needs and no value. Like you want to come and also offer that for others. But just as a concept, that I've seen so many, I guess because I get to be around so many men, I've seen so many men that would benefit from being able to create safe touch containers for their friends, for their family, and also just open up their spectrum of sensuality. Like I didn't know there was a difference really between sensuality and sexuality when I first had danced. Like if somebody touched me, I was like, oh my goodness, I'm turned on. Like that's the only state that I could exist in, was someone touches me and then I'm like, oh, that's a sexual experience, right? Like I remember the first time I started dancing Zouk, it was very hard for me to distinguish between the two. I was like, oh my God, like, am I falling in love again? Like every dance, am I falling in love? Are we about to be partners? And it was only when once I had enough practice in the dance that I could really create this understanding of the spectrum, but also being able to dance with like a variety of groups, being able to dance with like someone's grandmother, and realizing that this is just a totally different connective experience. And I remember when I had first danced with somebody in their like 70s or 80s in Zouk, I was like, I love this person. I want to just hug them and hold them. And it was like a big breakthrough, because the only way I had known to connect at that point was through like this concept of it needs to be mirrored with sexual energy. And then just recently, I've been getting to dance with a lot of men. And that's been so transformative for me. Like I didn't even realize that was something that a lot of men do not get to experience, is hugging another man, let alone hugging and swaying. And I bet there are people listening to this that might be getting even uncomfortable, because at least I used to be uncomfortable with that topic of like dancing with another man. And I just want to say that it is an incredible experience to feel that much heart opening to people you care for, and not having the only way you can care for the people that are around you be one way, but you have now a plethora of tools. And the last thing I'll say, I know I'm talking a lot, but the amount that it's transformed my romantic connections and what I can offer in connection and sensuality has been incredible. Where before it was like either we're not in a sexual state or we are. And it was like one or the other, on, off. And to have this entire spectrum that we can now ride side by side in romantic relationships, where like I know how to hold somebody's hand really well. Like I'm just like, I can hold your hand, I can massage you, I have so many access points to the sensuality that I think so many people, and I guess I'm speaking mostly to men in this whole thing, so many men would benefit from learning how to dance with a partner. Like it would change the texture of who you are as an individual.
Yeah, I love everything that you said, and I feel like we could probably talk about this for hours. And I totally agree. Dance has been that for me too, in the sense of like, especially when I'm, not in a romantic relationship, just having that consistent level of touch and intimacy. It also allows me to be more at peace in the moments that I'm single, because I'm getting those needs met, and it doesn't have to be in a sexual way or in a sexual context. And I feel like I don't know if it's safe to say that most people, like we all need some kind of physical interaction. I feel like when people are in, I don't remember like the words, when people are like locked up by themselves and just like locked off from human connection, like that has an impact on our health, our mental health, our physical health. And there's so many, obviously you're a physical therapist, the impact of touch and all of that as like a healing modality, and that we can access that through Zouk, through dance. Again, it seems like Zouk and dance is so much more than just what people might think when they first look at it. And I've heard from, different people at different moments of like, oh, Zouk, like that looks like a super like sexy dance. That doesn't feel accessible. Is there anything that you could say if someone was listening to this right now and thinking, yeah, I've heard of Zouk or I've heard of partner dancing, but I don't know, like they're just nervous about it or apprehensive about it. I mean, and I think everything that you just said, could speak to that as well. And what would you want them to know if they were like, never been to a class before? It feels really intimidating. It's just so foreign to be able to interact with people in a physical way that's not sexual, like you said, of like the beginning of your journey, maybe. Like, what would be helpful to tell them right now?
Yeah, it really is a great question. And it's something I do ponder a lot. Like, should everyone be dancing Zouk in the world? Think about that with everything that I love. I go, should everyone be doing this? It's a funny question to think about, but there are definitely people out there that it will not serve. That just has to be the truth of any statement of even yoga, even meditation. I used to think everyone should meditate. But then I found out, and this is a whole different side tangent, that you can actually hurt yourself meditating. But that's a totally different side tangent depending on the stability of your thoughts and how overwhelmed you get. And so the point is that any practice, it's not meant for every single person who's ever existed in the world. Now, does that mean it's meant for you? I think the things that all we can say is like the offerings that it has given us has been just like a lot of what we talked about with being able to connect and touch and so on and so forth. I think the most common angle I see somebody say like I can't dance that, one can be just a lack of belief in their ability to access the footwork and the technicalities. Then the other one is the belief that they might not be able to access the energetic component. If it's footwork and technicalities, it's practice. I hate to say it, but it's not only just practice, it's practice with a positive mindset, because you can practice and hate it. And it will really be hard to then develop the neuroplastic signals that you're looking for in developing technique. But if you can practice and rush your body with dopamine, you can decrease the amount of reps needed. This is more of like something I talk about whenever I'm teaching handstands and so on and so forth, this celebratory energy and how you can create it to create the fastest neuroplasticity changes, right? So that's the technicality component. Now the energetic one, if you're like, hey, I'm unable to access that type of energy, of whether it's the following energy or the leading energy of the dance, because those are the two roles. Somebody's leading the movement, somebody's following. And you can imagine the following takes a massive amount of surrender and sensuality in the surrendering. And then the leading takes a lot of earth and groundedness and being able to create deep clarity. And you're wondering, can I serve in that role? Then I think it is a must. You should do this dance. Like if that's then you must find out why are you not able to fulfill that role, because it would guide you to your highest self. If you're unable to surrender, you are probably unable to surrender to a lot of things, right? So those are the two. And then the third one, and this is the one I would say I don't know if you should dance this dance, is I don't know if it'll serve where you are right now, maybe in your relationships. Maybe you do have a deep romantic partnership and it's for you, it's sacred to share some of those touching moments, and that's how you label them. And I'm not here to reframe that. Like I want people to enjoy whatever sacred energy they want to create with the partners they want to create it with. But I will say that I have students that are married right now, and I dance with them, and we get to share a beautiful connection with proper boundaries that are like sometimes out loud labeled and sometimes just obvious, So, but that's a choice that them and their partner have collaboratively made as to how far they're willing to open their container. So, like for example, some relationships, the container is so closed that one partner can't even go rock climbing with other friends that are like maybe of the opposite sex, and that's how close the container is. And I respect it, that's their container and how they choose to live. And then some, they're like, hey, you can go ahead and rock climb with friends, but I wouldn't want you like salsa dancing. That seems a little too much. But you can do things alongside people without the touch. The touch is the boundary. And then some people are like, I don't mind if you salsa dance so long as we keep it comfortable, but I don't want you like in a deep embrace. And then some people are like, hey, as long as you guys are like not romantically affiliated and not kissing, I feel comfortable. And so like these are questions that are really going to be between you and your partner. And that's what I would say, like, I don't know if Zouk would serve in that exact situation, in that partnership. Zouk would serve, but even still, those two people should learn to Zouk with each other, because it would create. And like some people ask me that, they say, can I come to class with my romantic partner and like not change? And I say yes every time, because like the art of sensual connection that they would be able to develop, it would come with some caveats. You would learn slower, right? Because you wouldn't get the chance to read information from an entire library of sensuality. There's every human I've danced with, I've learned so much about sensual connection, but that doesn't mean you wouldn't learn a ton about your partner and learn a ton about trust, surrender, leading, following. So yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And the last thing I'll say about this, this might sound like a caveat, but it's related, that The reason that I got into feng shui was because oftentimes when we try to just like figure everything out with our logical mind, whether we're trying to solve a problem or overcome an obstacle, the mind can have resistance to that. And there's other layers of ourselves, of our energy that we can work with. Feng shui, it's color, nature, texture, these other things that can help us access different levels of energy, can help us problem solve, can help us grow in ways that like just working with the mind can't. And that's what Zouk feels like as well. It's a way to learn so many things, surrender and leadership and energy and all these different things and it's also a way to practice. Like you talked about at the beginning, practicing predetermined choices. And for Zouk, I think about if there's a career challenge in your life or some other challenge that feels like heavy and daunting of like, oh, I'm a beginner here. I just got a new job. I have to learn something new. If you can practice that with Zouk and get comfortable being a beginner, learning new things, working through all of things in a fun, no pressure, like nothing is going to happen if you don't get the Zouk move kind of state, that can help you in every area of your life. And you can come at it at like a different angle. That's not like tricking your brain, but it's just, you don't have to force it by only trying to like solve a problem or solve an obstacle one way. You can use Zouk as a tool to learn all these different life skills, like you talked about, relationship skills that can make a difference in every other area of your life.
Yeah.
Pausing this interview for a moment to say that if you've been wanting to expand into your next level in any area of your life and been experiencing some kind of obstacle, challenge, or tension, there are multiple ways that you can move past that. First is mindset, and notice if you're having any limiting or disempowering thoughts that are holding you back, and learning to practice new empowering beliefs. Second is lifestyle, and exploring what are practices you could be doing, like meditation or spending time in nature, that will leave you feeling more grounded, clear, or focused, and give you that much more energy to pursue your goals. Third is energetics. Are you connected to a vision for yourself and your life that lights you up? One that you deeply believe in, that you can feel what it feels like in your body and practice in your mind ahead of time, like that predetermined yes, to make it that much easier to then take inspired actions in your everyday life. These are the exact skills I help my one-on-one coaching clients develop. These skills have the power to help you break free from fears and doubts, clarify your vision, and prioritize what deeply matters to you so you can courageously pursue a life you love. If you're listening to this and thinking, yes, I would love to learn these skills, I would love support on my journey, I offer free 75-minute clarity calls where you can see if this work is right for you. In our 75 minutes together, we'll explore what's working and not working in your life currently and where it is that you really want to go. We'll see what's holding you back and then uncover the tools, practices, and next steps you could take that would support you most on your journey. Even uncovering that is transformational. So many people can't really answer that question of what it is they really want. And without knowing that, it makes it really challenging to take any steps in that direction. So if you are ready to get clear, go to ginakasbar.com/clarity call to book your time. If your heart is saying yes, I cannot wait to connect with you and hear all about the next level life you are ready to step into. All right, my friend, let's head back to the interview. So that feels pretty cool.
Yeah, I love the idea that you just brought, the practitioner mindset, how if you are able to harness the lessons of the beginner state of mind in one field, it's easy moving forward. Yesterday's class, were you in the Basics 1 class?
Yeah.
Oh, you were there too?
Mm-hmm.
Great. Just how many new people were there? All at once. It was like 6 new people. And normally we get 1 or 2 new people, but we have the same crowd of like 14, 15 people with like 1 or 2. But we had 6 or so new people in Basics 1. And I just was like under the, like whenever I see this many new people, I really want to make sure that the class is accessible. And that's one thing I think I do really well, is working with a beginner and creating just enough challenge and dopamine for them to feel like they've overcome something, but they don't feel so much intensity that they don't want to retry. And that's the delicate balance of any coaching or teaching experience, is how can I create enough challenge with enough reward that the person feels excited. And one thing that I do at the end of class, I try to, but I didn't get to every beginner, is I try to speak with every beginner and just let them know that I really honored how they showed up today in a very hard experience. It is so hard at times. to be a beginner, and Zouk is a crazy one to be a beginner in because, okay, if you're a beginner at something, it's mildly vulnerable, right? But now, let's say you're a beginner at dance. Dance is an expressive form already. If you're a beginner at a technical form, like throwing a punch, there's not much expressive quality in the punch. So yeah, you feel somewhat vulnerable, but you're not feeling the extra vulnerability of being in an expressive practice. So now you're a beginner in an expressive practice, and then in Zouk, you're being watched by somebody very closely because they're your partner. You being a beginner in an expressive practice, it is by far one of the hardest beginner states of mind to accomplish. Versus like if I'm teaching somebody how to juggle, they don't have to be watched so intimately in an expressive field. They're just like having to work with the beginner state of mind. So it is an advanced beginner state of mind concept to try and handle. And so I try to honor every person who walks in, and especially those who can smile on day one. I tell them, I said, yo, if you're smiling on day one, this is about to be an amazing journey. And if you're not, please keep showing up. Let's figure it out. But if you're already smiling on day one, I say to a lot of people, it's a great gift when you can find something that when you put energy into it, it gives it back. And not everything has done that for me in my life. I sometimes put energy somewhere and I don't get it back. Zouk, like you can imagine, like my mother, gardening does that for her. She gardens, she puts the energy in, she eats the fruit at the end. And it is this beautiful reciprocation. Zouk has offered that so deeply for me. Every minute I've put into Zouk, I've gotten tenfold back. And that's why it's so easy for me to practice it. Like I find it incredibly easy to show up to practice sessions knowing that because of this, I'm going to gain more growth, love, and connection. And it's been consistent over the past 3 years, which is why I'm still here.
Yeah. What a beautiful just story and picture that you painted. And yeah, Zouk might have its challenges, and it also has so many opportunities for growth and development and joy and fulfillment and all of these beautiful things. So thank you for sharing all of that. And as we near the end of this conversation here, if there was one thing that you wanted people to remember or like take away most from everything that we've talked about today, what would you want to leave them with?
I liked what you said about predetermined yeses. How did you say it? You said
What did I
making
say?
a
I mean, like the
predetermined choice.
power of practicing something in a different context. Is that what you're thinking about?
No, it was what I had talked about really early on that I
Yeah.
said my yeses before I
Yeah.
even got to the
Yeah.
hip hop. But then you summarized that quality. And right now, I'm hoping that everyone who's like listening to this has experienced some state shift. Like maybe you're sitting in your car listening or you're watching. I don't know. But you've experienced a shift in state from all these stories of connection, right? And there's this window you have right now where you're experiencing a state shift before you return back to your day-to-day life, where you can make the yes in this moment, right? And so I would just take advantage of that state shift and practice the yes right now, whichever one you're calling in, whether it's like the practicing or whatever. We said like, but if you're like, okay, we ended on Zouk. If you're feeling the call to say yes to Zouk, right? And at least try like a class, just say, try a class. I would right now practice that yes in your body so that whenever that moment arises, because it could be crazy, and it doesn't have to be Zouk. It could have been just dance. Remember we talked about dancing at weddings. I know a lot of people that are so afraid to dance at a wedding. And like whatever that looks like, your yes, with this state shift that's taking place, it is a window or a portal to practice the yes right now. And yeah, that's what I'll end with.
I love it. Thanks. So yeah, what I'm hearing is if there's something in your mind right now that you've been marinating on, maybe you want to pursue, whether dance, Zouk, something completely different, doesn't matter. Practice. What I hear when I hear like practice is like imagine yourself saying yes to that. Or if you are able to right now, go book a class or go actually take an action aligned with whatever that yes is. And there's also power in being able to see it ahead of time. So maybe the opportunity isn't right there yet, or you haven't found the thing, like you were waiting for the call about the interview, and when it came, it was like, all right, I've already practiced this yes. So see yourself saying yes to whatever that is, and then when the opportunity arises, whether you have it right now or it comes tomorrow, you've already paved the road for that yes to be easy.
Yeah, because the habits will try to block you, and we have this state right now. And like the one I keep thinking of, I don't know why, I keep thinking of this wedding of like you're at a wedding and so many people are preconditioned to say no right when the dance floor opens. They're just so preconditioned to their no. And like now would be a good time to say that next club, wedding, party, I'm going to say yes. And I'm going to dance.
I love it. I love it. Sweet. Well, the last question I love to ask, because when I think of follow your spark, for me, it's often about making space for something that might not even make sense. It's just something that feels fun or curious. You might have no idea where it's going to go or why, but you just are inclined to like pursue something. Is there anything in your life right now that you've given yourself space or permission to explore that's just like a spark of fun, curiosity, interest, passion, anything, however big or small or random or not random it has been?
Oh, are there any current sparks in
Yeah.
my life? Yeah, I mean, there's so many. I'm calling in like I am right now practicing crazy yeses. Everyone, like I am practicing, like just like I said, we're all experiencing the state shift with the yes available. I am calling in things that like I feel would have been made me afraid to like have the courage to call in the past, and I'm just noticing the moments right when they happen to just say, "Oh, I'm calling this in right now."
Mm-hmm.
And one that I just experienced like a couple days ago was that I had this experience where somebody had reached out to me and they wanted to ask me for help on something, and I helped them through the problem logistically. But I realized what they actually were asking was like, "Will you support me in this endeavor?" And although I did support them, I never answered the question as deeply as I should have. And so I called them 2 days ago out of nowhere. I just called them. I said, "Hey, I realized that like you asked me a question I never really answered it, and I'm fucking here." And that's what I did in the call. I just said, "And I am so here, fully right beside your side. And I know that that's what you were asking." And they melted. They were like, "Harnoor, I've never received a call like this." And I was like, yeah, like I knew when I had that realization moment that yes would have been one of the most impactful things I could have done in that relationship I was fostering. So yeah, that's one that comes to mind.
Beautiful. So it sounds like, is that different than how you would have reacted in the past, or like?
Yeah, there was a part of me that would have said, I met all their needs. Like, what more could they want? But instead of saying it in that tone, I met all their needs. What more could they want? I said, I think I met all their needs, but what more could they want? And then I was like, oh, they need this. And then I was like, and I would love to provide that for them. Like, that one's it. Like, it just hit me. I was like, that's what they wanted. Like, of course, like I thought they wanted actual logistical help. So I like was, doing the work that they asked for, but what they actually wanted was assurance and security. And that's what I called and made the
Amazing.
Actual purpose of the call.
Yeah, beautiful. And maybe to tie it back to Zouk, but it sounds like that could potentially be something that Zouk can teach, of like that, the subtle, like hearing those subtler signs or tuning into the subtler energies, and not just seeing what's on the surface, but being able to go a level deeper and pick up on those micro signs that can give you more information if you take the time to listen and tune in and like see what's underneath.
Yeah. Let's have a hug. I'm telling you, let's hug and let me show you some crazy micro movements. Because whenever I dance with a beginner, I don't care to spin them. I just weight shift and I show them the possibilities that lie. So, shout out to the studio that we're teaching at, Try Baltimore. Come give it a shot. It's out in Baltimore. We do all the things. Yes. We don't only have Zouk here. We have everything we talked about: meditation, handstands, yoga, dance, all of it.
Yes, it's an incredible space. I'm happy to be here now. I'm happy that it exists. And just thank you so much for joining me in this conversation today.
Can I give you a hug?
Yeah.
Oh, so sweet. So sweet. Thanks for bringing me on.
Yeah. And if you're watching this on YouTube, we're going to do a little Zouk demo in a minute. So check that out. And if you're listening to the audio, go watch it on YouTube if you're curious what Zouk is all about. All right, my friends, we'll talk to you soon.
tutti in una bolla, lasciare